Hello everyone! I am Alice of KH Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to be talking about the Wall of Shame. Big part of being an author and doing in-person events is experiencing the good, bad, and the weird. And today we are going to talk about the bad and kind of the weird. So I'm going to be as general as I can because the point of this video is not necessarily to have people try to investigate who these people are and go find them and do I don't know what. That's not the point of this video. We're not trying to go have a flame war with some people. This is more so, I hope, to be a learning experience for some people how not to act at these events. But more than anything else, it's for us fellow authors to commiserate as well as for everyone else's personal entertainment. So with that, here are some examples of some people that behaved badly at my booth at events. So I do need to be a little bit more specific about what exactly this event was because it's relevant to why it was so bad. So at this particular event, and I've talked about this in one of my other videos, but at this particular event, they had a theme. It was a fantasy theme, and they had hired people to be at the event to be dressed as a particular fantasy type character. And it was like a little scavenger hunt for the kids at the event. And they had to go to each one of the different colors of characters. It was like a rainbow, go to the orange one, go to the yellow one, go to the red one, blah, blah, blah. And once you got all the things, then you get a prize. The problem is that the event screwed up twofold. In that one, it told all the vendors that you have to dress up for the event and you have to dress on theme. Two, they did not tell us about this very specific scavenger hunt thing and to tell us, hey, make sure you don't dress as anything that is related to this because otherwise people will confuse you with the scavenger hunt people. And guess what happened? All day, on the first day of the event, was confused with the scavenger hunt people. So I had a lot of people coming up to my booth and getting angry at me that I didn't know what they were talking about, that I wasn't giving them whatever the doodad was. And I had some people like really cross the line with me. I had some people threaten me. I had some people who basically were like, you know, you are ruining my child's time at this event. People who thought that I was just being obtuse for no reason. Like it was 8 kinds of ridiculous. And then when I finally did see the scavenger hunt person that they were actually looking for, I was like, oh, this is what's happening. So then it became my responsibility somehow that then I had to inform all the people that came up to my booth thinking I was that person to be like, no, actually, you're looking for the person wearing blah, blah, blah that's probably over there. And then still having people argue with me, telling me that I'm making stuff up or I'm just not wanting to give them the thing or I'm being mean to them or whatever. And it just honestly ruined the whole event for me. There were other things that ruined the event for me, but that was the number one thing. And so that dishonorable mention is for the event coordinators that they did a very bad job of coordinating that part of the event and forcing me to have to deal with something that I shouldn't have had to deal with. Because if I had known that, I would have absolutely 1000% picked a different cosplay to wear. And so the second day, I wore a cosplay that was so far removed from what the scavenger hunt people were doing, and lo and behold, people stopped bothering me. Amazing. Another dishonorable mention, and the saddest thing is this has happened more than once at different events, and just for the life of me, I cannot fathom what rock these people have been living under, where all of the different ways that you can pick up a book, just, you know, pick it up off the table, look at it, explore it, just all the different ways that one can explore a book. The amount of humans that I've experienced come up to my booth and, you know, we have a book that is lying flat on the table like this, okay? Imagine, flat on the table. They, for some reason, think the appropriate way to pick up a book is to pick it up by the cover like this and hold it in the air by the cover like this and almost rip the cover off. And then when I freak out at them, because I'm sorry, all the politeness in the world will run screaming from my body if you do that at my booth, I will scream at you. Because who picks up a book like this? And then they get mad at me for screaming at them. It's a bad time, but y'all, The fact that it has happened more than once and that it happened at different events. Apparently this is a problem, that there are people who don't know how to interact with a book, and that honestly frightens me. That, like, you don't pick up the whole book as a whole unit, that you think you're just gonna... I don't know. I don't have an explanation or words for what could possibly possess a person to think that is the appropriate way to pick up merchandise. Here we are. So, dishonor on you, dishonor on your family, just all of that. To anybody who picks up books like that, like, I will scream at you. Like, you have chosen violence today. The next dishonorable mention, wall of shame, are specifically because, one, I'm a femme person, and two, I am a flamboyant femme person, and a lot of times I'm a very pink, sparkly, flamboyant femme person. When I have older men come to my booth, so we're talking men that are anywhere from like 60 plus, like all the way up to like 80 years old. They're like the old men, most often with that age group of men, will come up to my booth and literally pick up my books and be like, a female author. What will they think of next? And just absolutely talk down to me like I'm a 5-year-old with a lemonade stand with the E's written in crayon backwards, and that they don't believe that female authors can write real books, that our books are just crayon scribble gibberish, and that we have no literary merit. That happens, unfortunately, far more frequently than you would think it does. And on top of it, the number of these men that will see my booth with my 30 plus titles that I have not just written, published 30 plus titles. I have written far more than that. I have a line of books, y'all, that I'm working on, just an assembly line of trying to get them out as fast as possible. I have so many that I've written, y'all, that I need to finish. And I go, okay, where's your book? And there was, oh, well, you know, I have this novel I've been tinkering with. So you don't have anything published. And they're like, oh, well. And they still walk away from my booth thinking that they are superior to me, even though they have never published a book in their entire life and haven't even finished writing a book in their entire life. And now, little disclaimer, this is not to shame anybody that hasn't yet published a book or hasn't finished writing their book. That's not what this is about. This is about, whoo boy, the level of entitlement here. Like, goodness gracious, honey, you're one to talk. Thinking that I'm beneath you and you haven't even finished writing your book, let alone published anything, but somehow you're better than me. Okay. Amazing how much that happens. Another dishonorable mention that was also a man from that same age group was a man who picked up one of my poetry books and looked at it and saw the price on it. And I mean, this is my own personal copy, so it doesn't have a price on it, which is why it's also all bent to hell. It's because it's my book. This is my book. For me. But they normally, you know, in the corner have like a little sticker with the price on it. And this particular poetry collection had 25 written on it. This man thought he was at a garage sale or a yard sale or at the flea market or something. I'm not sure he knew where he was. And he hands me a singular dollar bill. And I'm just staring at him and I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? Is that a tip? And he's like, well, no, I need 3/4 back. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, well, this book is 25 cents. And I'm like, no, this book is $25. So you're going to need to give me 24 more of those if you want that book. And I kid you not, this man, he's holding my book and holding his ronkily dollar bill at me. Looks at the book, laughs at it, and he's like, I just wanted it for a joke anyway, and literally tossed it at me. Back onto the booth, just threw it at me, and turned and walked away. Just abhorrent behavior. And not only that, I want to be clear, this particular poetry collection was about depression and mental illness. He wanted a poetry book about depression and mental illness for a laugh. You can't make this shit up, y'all. It's crazy how people behave in public. It's shocking to me. It is shocking to me the way people will behave in public. And whenever I think, oh, I have met the most WTF. I've had the most WTF experience. Somehow the universe will be like, hold my beer and send me someone crazier. Another dishonorable mention are the people who need to tell me they only read literature. And they always like make that stupid face. And they sound like this when they talk. I don't know why, but... And for some reason, they need to go out of their way to let me know that I'm a very silly little girl with my very silly mermaid and fantasy stories of no merit because I don't write literature. Whatever the fuck that means. But the amount of times that I've had old people, it's always old people, y'all. And more often than not, this is also the women's who are being this dishonorable mention for whatever reason, so y'all need to get your shit together too. But coming up to me and be like, I only read literature, and it's like, good for you. Do you want a gold star and a cookie? Like, I don't care. Like, clearly if I have nothing here for you, move on. I don't know. Why are you here? But that they just are compelled to let me know that I am not worthy of their just extremely lofty reading requirements. That, oh my goodness, you do not make the cuts. And, oh no, boo-hoo. I will go cry into my money at home. Oh no, so sad. Wild, just wild behavior, y'all. And speaking of people just, you know, if I don't have anything here for you, why are you here? Kind of thing. Another event, which I talked about in one of my other videos, and this one I will tell you which one it was because I honestly don't give a shit if they come for me, because I talked extensively in that video about all the complaints that Neil and I had about this event. RaptorCon. One of the top 5 worst events we've ever done. RaptorCon. 0 sales, and most of the vendors there also 0 sales. That's how you know an event is bad, is if all of the vendors do poorly. You have done a poor event. You've done a bad job as the event coordinator. So it wasn't just us, it was everybody. The amount of people that came up to our booth, and it's very obvious, like our booth is just, hello, we are book people. We sell books. That's what we do here. Here are all the books. All the books. We don't have anything else here for you. These are books. The amount of people that specifically came up to our booth at that event and said to our faces, I hate reading. I don't like books. Okay. Thank you for sharing this information. Why the fuck are you here? It is amazing the things that people just let fall out of their faces at you. Just, wow, you said that out loud with your whole chest. Okay, you must have 0 self-awareness. 0 situational awareness, but okay. By that same stroke, which is also part of why most of the vendors made $0, and the ones that made some sales made terrible sales, just like barely anything, is the amount of people at this convention. And this was a full weekend, big, large-scale convention. The amount of people that were at this convention that said, I don't have any money. Why are you here? I'm sorry, but conventions are one of the most expensive things you can do that is a non-essential. There is nothing essential about going to a convention as an attendee. Just no reason. You are here because you want to be here. And in order to have a good time at a convention, you have to spend money. That's the whole nature of a convention. It costs money to do the convention, to, like, you know, get your little pass, whatever you want to call it, your badge, your pass, whatever it's called for that event. It costs money to stay at the hotel. It costs money to schlep your ass there. And it costs money to do everything, because a lot of times, like, the big thing was they had celebrity people there that you had to pay extra to go see. And then you have to pay to buy anything you want, whether that's food, whether that's stuff at the event. Just you have to pay for so much stuff. At a convention, literally a convention, all you do at a convention is spend money. That's what you do at a convention. Why are you at a convention with no money? And it wasn't even, you know, which happens at every convention. It's a given, is that you will have people, they have their arms full of bags and they come up to your booth and they're like, I want this so bad, but I spent all my money. That is perfectly reasonable. That is what happens. And then you give them your business card so they can buy your stuff later when they get a few more paychecks under their belt after all of this shopping. No, we're talking about these are people that came to the convention with no money. And you're just like, what on God's green earth are you doing here? All you did was just buy the badge to get in and just do, I don't know what? Why are you here? And that's not to say it's impossible to do a convention and spend no money. Like, you know, if you're on a tight budget, more power to you, that's fine. But then why are you in the dealer's hall? If you don't have money to spend, why are you doing that? And not only that, these are also people who were not taking business cards, who were not like making a wish list or anything. They were just walking around doing like this is their first day on planet Earth and just being like, I don't have any money. Just, do you know where you are? Are you okay? Do you need an adult? What are you doing? It just felt very that. Like, this was these people's first day on Earth, and it was just like, okay. First and only time we've ever done that convention. Just, and everyone that I tell, I'm like, do not do that convention. It's a train wreck. Just don't. I have my other video on here all about everything that was a train wreck about that convention, because, oh boy, y'all, it was bad. And second place for one of the worst offenders at an event, and I have to be careful about how I say this. I was at an event, and this is not a haha, y'all. This was actually really scary. I was at an event, and there were a couple of men that came into the event, and it was very clear that they were staying at the hotel for completely unrelated reasons, saw all the conventionness going on, and thought, hey, we'll just stop in and just see what this is about. And honestly, I don't know how they got in there, because they didn't have badges. It was very clear that they were in the dealer hall and they did not pay to be there. They did not have badges. In fact, it looked like they came directly from the pool. They didn't have clothes on. One of them was wearing a towel. The other one was wearing like their bathing suit. And they just had, one of them had like a shirt on over and the other one did not. They didn't even have clothes on. And because they didn't have clothes on, when they came up to my booth, and I saw them from across the room, and I'm like, this is weird. This is bad. This is going to be bad. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't trust the vibe. The vibes are off. And when they came up to me, I saw the tattoos that they had, and they were of a very specific variety that a very specific group of people whose entire group is all about disliking certain other groups of people. And I was terrified, y'all. I was terrified that these two men, just proudly on display, those tattoos for all to see, were at my booth and just talking to me. And I knew for a fact that if they had any idea that I was part of the queer community, that conversation would have gone so differently. And I use the word conversation loosely because I was doing the automated thing that us femme folk do, where we know we are in a dangerous situation and we have to respond in a way that will not inflame the situation and that will hopefully make them go away, that will make them lose interest, but not in a negative way, just that they'll just be like, okay, this isn't going anywhere, I'm gonna move on. Not in a like confrontational, get the fuck away from my booth kind of way. I was so scared for the entirety of that experience. And it was probably only like a minute or two that it was happening, but it felt like forever. And immediately after they had moved on to where they were not paying attention to me anymore, they were like several booths down, I immediately got up and got security, and they were removed. It was so scary, y'all. It was so incredibly scary. And unfortunately, I have met other authors where they have had experiences with those type of people coming to events for one reason or another, and just being at that event, and it's very clear what group they're a part of, that they're not trying to hide it, and it's scary. It happens and it's scary. And doing your best to keep as calm as possible, at least outwardly anyway, and looking for whatever you can do to just appease and diffuse the situation, but also not be engaging so that you're not encouraging them to keep interacting with you, so that they just move on, and so that then you can go tell someone or go get security or just at least remove yourself from the situation or whatever. I don't wish that situation on anyone. Even if you are not one of the types of people that they are against, it's still a scary situation. So, and y'all may be wondering, how is that second place? Definitely it's second place because nothing happened. Nothing happened. Thank God. Honestly, knock on wood. Thank goodness that nothing happened. It was just a very scary experience where nothing physically actually happened. But that's because I had the wherewithal to go get security, make sure nothing actually happened. This next one, y'all. Oh my God. People. Oh my God. Okay. So, this particular situation, the reason why it is number one is not so much that it was like horrific or like I was in danger or I was particularly offended or anything like that. It was just, this is the most ridiculous situation that as of today I have ever had to deal with at an author convention. That I was just like, are you serious right now? So as I've talked about in some of my other videos, is that panelists typically are not like vetted at conventions. Like there is no like vetting process to make sure that you know what you're talking about on a panel. And not only that, it's not the end of the world because you can still have like a discussion about things even if you're not like an absolute expert on something. I myself have found myself on a couple of panels where I realized in the thick of it, I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't be here. Oh shit, I'm going to sound stupid. And so, you know, I defer to the other people on the panel because I very quickly realized I misjudged what this panel was about. That has happened to me and it sucks and it's embarrassing and you just handle it with the grace that you can. However, there are sometimes situations where there are people on panels where they think they know what they're talking about, and it's very clear they don't. And a lot of times these people will hijack the panel and make it all about them, which makes it even worse. So why this one is so insanely ridiculous. And I will tell you all the event this happened at because you need the context of knowing which event this is in order to understand how completely crazy this was. This was at Worldcon. This was at the Chicago Worldcon that Neil and I did together, and I have a whole YouTube video about that experience, and that particular convention unfortunately went to hell in a handbasket for some very different reasons. This Worldcon, because it was so soon after everything had just started to open up after the pandemic, they had both in-person panels and online panels. So they had panels that people were in person in a room doing the panel, but all of the panels were also available on Zoom. So they also had camera equipment in the in-person panels so that people could watch the panels even if they couldn't physically be there. You still had to like buy a Worldcon badge, so they had like an in-person and an online option so that you could have access to the panels online even if you weren't at the actual convention. Or if for whatever reason you were at the convention and you just didn't want to physically go to the panel, you could watch them on your computer or your phone or whatever. I was on a combination of in-person panels and online panels, and that was simply because some of the subjects of the panels, some of them were in person and some of them were online, and I was more interested in the subject matter of those panels than I was whether they were in person or not. I didn't care because I have this whole setup on my laptop that I can on a smaller scale do anywhere. So that was the plan, was that I had to, that in addition to everything else, I had to run back and forth to the hotel room to get my setup all set up and do Zoom panels alongside other people and all that. And there were other authors that did that too, where they were physically at events in person, but they were also doing online panels. So I wasn't the only one doing that. There was one individual who was not in person at the events. Like, he was purely doing online. And thank God for that, because I don't think I could have had the patience that I did if I had to deal with this in person. He was not an author. He was not in the publishing industry. Like, he was not an agent. He was not a publisher. He was not anything. And it's like, honey, why are you on these panels? What are you doing? He was on like almost every panel I was on. It became a joke with me and Neil. He was going to be like, you have this panel coming up. Is he going to be on there? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. He was on almost every panel. Like, I honestly think this man was on almost every goddamn panel for the entirety of the convention, because other people were talking about him too, saying he was on their panels too. And I'm just like, what? Who let this happen? How was this allowed? This individual was advertising that he makes websites. That his whole spiel was that he specializes in making websites for authors to advertise and sell their books. And I'm just like, oh boy, honey, you are behind the times, because that's not really a thing anymore. There are so many options now for you to be able to just build your own website with like basic stuff like Squarespace and WordPress and all those other type of websites where you don't even have to know coding, you can just plug and play with widgets. I mean, that's what I did with my website. That it's just not really a service that not just authors, but really anybody needs anymore, is unless you are working for a corporation where they need you to do very specific things and very specific coding, and they need to keep everything in-house because of confidential information and other stuff. Being a website builder in a freelance sense like that is something that you're really going to struggle with. And I'm not trying to throw any shade out there, and if y'all come for me in the comments, I completely understand. I do. But I'm just saying that it's like, my guy, like, you kind of missed the boat, like, time period wise on, you know, where you would find your success with doing this. And so it was the combination of, like, the desperation of it was very clear that he needed more clients, that he was not doing well at doing this, as well as just the lack of self-awareness and lack of situational awareness that was just breathtaking. Because it wasn't even entitlement. It was just like, he just woo, nobody's home. And so these panels were just about completely unrelated things. Like, one of them that I was on, for goodness sake, was the biology of fantasy creatures, where it was like people with like PhDs in science stuff and me. And while I'm not like a PhD science person, I'm also a giant science nerd, and I took a ton of advanced science classes all throughout my schooling. And I actually took a special class in high school where like I got to write in the scientific journal for like the Argonne labs. Like, fun little secret skill that I have is I'm a secret scientist nerd. And so you have all these people on this panel, and you have this dude. We're trying to have a very serious conversation about what would the vascular system for a centaur look like. Like, would they have two hearts? You know, because that's a lot of blood you have to be pumping around with essentially two different bodies stuck together. I mean, that's a lot of surface area you have to pump blood through. And also with the nightmare that horses are biologically, y'all, if y'all know how a horse's vascular system works and how their heart pumps and how their organs work, it's terrifying. Like, they are God's mistake. They are a nightmare of nature. Like, oh my God, they should not be alive with how they function. It's low-key terrifying. So we're talking about that level of stuff, okay? Like, science-y stuff. And he would just interrupt, just completely out of nowhere, interrupt. So like, we're in the middle of talking about that, and he will just talk over you and be like, just so you know, I design websites, and I am here to provide a service to authors, and blah, 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 blah. And we're all just sitting there like, excuse me. We were talking about like the vascular chambers of a centaur's heart. What are this? Is this a commercial that I was unaware of happening in the middle of the panel? And that just kept happening in all the panels. And then on top of it, the fact that like he was clearly in a very poorly lit room in his house. Like, it looked like it was like a dungeon or something. Like, it was like so dark for no reason. And like, in addition to the lighting being bad, he was doing that thing that a lot of people will do that don't really understand lighting with like webcam setups and stuff, is being backlit so that there's just this bright light behind him, and then he just looks like a dark silhouette and you like can't see anything. So he just looks like some scary like villain from like, you know, a 90s movie that's like, you know, the mysterious I'm sending you this video, blah, blah. You know, he looks like that. And like, the sound quality was so bad. Like, it was clear that he like had a bad like microphone, or he had some sort of interference, or I don't know what, but there was just this constant horrible like background buzzing noise, and he never muted himself. So like, that was, you know, kind of the thing, is if you were not actively talking, you should mute yourself, so that was an indicator that, one, you were done talking, to then prompt other people that, okay, it's my turn to talk. But also to minimize background noise, because no matter where you are or what you're doing, there's always going to be some sort of background noise, and that just helps minimize it if only like one or two people have their mics on instead of everybody. He would just be on the whole time, never muted. And you would just hear all this horrible background noise, and you could hear he had like a box fan somewhere in the background too on full blast. And he also talked way too loud, and it's like, honey, we can hear you. We all have headphones on. You're right here in our ears. You don't need to scream. And on top of that, because he was talking so loud, his mic was hot. So it kept having that popping and the like screeching that mics will do, just all of that feedback stuff with him basically like yelling into his mic. It just made for just a nightmare experience just having him on the panel. So we're just like, oh no, it's this dude again. And when you start the panel, you all do introductions to be like, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm here because blah, 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 and this is my expertise I'm bringing to the table on this panel. And you're supposed to keep it, you know, short and sweet. He would just blather on. He would do his entire pitch for his introduction. And we're like, come on, wrap it up. Nobody cares. And then he would just keep doing his pitch randomly throughout the panel. And he would try to just steer the conversation toward like website creation and like, you know, how websites help authors get sales because of traffic and I don't know, just stuff about that. And we're like, that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but okay. And y'all, also to give some perspective, because Worldcon is a 5-day con, okay? It is Thursday to Monday. 5 days of panels. I was on 10 panels, and he was on almost every single one. And he was apparently on panels with other people that I wasn't on. That is a lot of panels for one person to be on in 5 days, even though 5 days is a long time for a convention. Like, my God, he must have been on anywhere between like 20 and 40 panels. Who let this happen? Who authorized this? Who let this happen? So yeah, that's the reason why that one is my number one, because it was just so insanely ridiculous that it was just like, I don't know what's happening right now. And it just made doing the panels such a miserable experience. And thank God, he, as I said, he wasn't there in person, because I would have had to deal with that also in person. And I don't think I would have had the patience to not tell him to shut the hell up in person. But yeah, so that is my wall of shame. There are far more people that are on my personal wall of shame for conventions. Those are just some of the highlights and some of the general things that happen far more frequently than they should. Y'all want to tell me in the comments below what your wall of shame is from the conventions that you've done, whether you're a reader or an author or another industry person. Feel free to tell me below. I would love to hear your horror stories, your funny stories, the weird, everything in between. Tell me all about it in the comments below. Alright, y'all, I want to thank y'all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. Alright, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.